What are the Brigsby Bear Adventures? Isn't James a little old to be that into a kid's TV show? What's with the animatronic foxes? How many times is my wife gonna have to be right before I just go ahead and trust her instincts? All this and more in today's episode of Pulling Focus. Hello fellow cinephiles, what is up? My name's Lou, and today we're going to be snuggling up with Brigsby Bear. Whew, this one's going to be a bitch to do spoiler free, but let's give it the old community college try. Brigsby Bear is about a dude named James, played by Kyle Mooney, and his obsession with this show called Brigsby Bear Adventures. James lives in an underground bunker with his parents, played by Mark Hamill and Jane Addams. When Brigsby Bear Adventures ends abruptly, James decides to finish the story himself. Could I be any more vague? The reason I'm being so vague about the plot here is that I went into this movie knowing even less about it, and I was really caught off guard by what the movie was about. I feel like it's probably best experienced that way. As I mentioned in the intro, my wife Tammy is the one that instigated us seeing Brigsby Bear in the theater. I had seen exactly one trailer, which made it seem like a bad acid trip starring that nerdy looking guy from Saturday Night Live and his ridiculous bear costume. I mean, look at that fucking thing. Not exactly my first choice for a big screen viewing, but she had just enough enthusiasm that I relented, and off to the theater we went. Now, as I said, the setup to this story is a dude that's way too old to be into this kid's TV show, living with his parents in an underground bunker. The parents seem loving, but there's this underlying tension to everything, made more disturbing by these odd little deviations in behavior. A standout example being, after saying a form of grace before dinner, James and his parents proceed to stand up and shake hands like they just finished a business deal. On top of the odd behavior, there's this decidedly lo-fi approach to props in those early scenes. Remember the animatronic foxes in the intro I mentioned? Yeah. And lightning bugs on wires, too. I think they're called gunner foxes. It's like these characters are living in a Disneyland ride from the 80s, and they're acting like nothing weird is going on. There's a lot of little things like that. Strange enough that you can't ignore them, but in the early scenes, the film does nothing at all to explain them. During the first 10 minutes or so of Brigsby Bear, I came up with a bunch of theories as to why this family was in this situation. Without giving away what's actually going on, it's explained pretty quickly, and I found the answer super satisfying. The rest of the film is about James coming to terms with his reality and trying to make sense of what he's supposed to do next. Now, I've liked Kyle Mooney enough in Saturday Night Live, but he smashed all kinds of ass in this movie. He plays it a little like he's on the spectrum. He's so socially awkward that sometimes it's painful to watch, but Mooney kept it honest enough that I stayed totally invested. There are some scenes where James is trying so hard to understand the situation he's in that it broke my heart, but then like a minute later I'm laughing my nuts off. Honestly, I really enjoyed all the acting here. Greg Kinnear was great as a detective that figures central to James's story. Jorge Lendeborg Jr., or however you pronounce that, stood out to me as well, playing James's new friend Spence. His interest in James and Brigsby felt totally real to me, despite how bizarre the situation is. I also have to mention Mark Hamill, who overcomes potential stunt casting to turn in a pretty great performance as well. Finally, Sheil, who has a beast of a scene late in the film that put her on my radar something fierce. Nicely done, madam. Oh, Jesus. Directed by Dave McCary and written by Mooney and his friend Kevin Costello, Brigsby Bear could easily have been a train wreck. But somehow they kept it on the rails, and all that weird shit early on pays off really nicely. There was just enough silly to keep the plot from caving in on itself, but just enough heart to keep it from feeling like a 90-minute SNL sketch. Mooney, Costello, and McCary clearly have a soft spot for the lo-fi VHS area, which might even border on fetishism. If you're a little long in the tooth, and remember those days fondly, this gentle stroking of those feelings will probably add to your enjoyment of Brigsby Bear. Always with a twist. If, however, you're too young to remember proverbs like, "Be kind, rewind," or "I've fallen and I can't get up," I could see how this odd look backwards with its Luke Skywalker casting and its lightning bugs on wires might feel a little cheesy. Personally, I'm old enough to remember the panic of getting a porno stuck in the living room VCR, and I do have reverence for that late 80s, early 90s analog aesthetic, so this all worked perfectly for me. All in all, Brigsby Bear caught me totally off guard. Heartstrings tugged, funny bone tickled, in one of the most creative movies I've seen in years. If you like your movies all serious or all silly, this ain't the one for you. But for me, it's like a sore dick. You can't beat it. Thanks for stopping by to chat about Brigsby Bear, and I hope you'll come back next time when I'm going to be showing you how to make my mom's famous chicken mole enchiladas.